Hi everybody, Lori here for Simon Says Stamp. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a fun project to share with you featuring the Yarn Love stamp and die set that came out in the Beautiful Days release with Simon Says Stamp. So this is a great stamp set for those of you who love to knit, crochet, you like yarn and all that stuff. Then there's a fun stencil that kind of coordinates with it. It's called the Chunky Knit Stencil, and I'm going to do a little dry embossing with this Chunky Knit Stencil. So I have my Spellbinders Platinum 6. I've got this platform base. I took out that thin kind of shim and I put the cutting plate down, and then I put a metal shim, like a metal adapter, and then this is the silicone rubber mat. I think that came with the platinum. It's for embossing. Then I'm going to lay down a panel of white cardstock. I believe this is just Neenah Solar White, 80 pound. And then this is the Chunky Knit Stencil. So you might have to play around with your die cutting sandwich recipe depending on how thick and how much tension. You need it to be good, but not too thick, but thick enough that you get a nice little impression. And this is such a fun way to use your stencils. It gives you that little bit of texture there, but it's subtle, so it doesn't really compete with your imagery. And so pull out those stencils and do a little dry embossing with them. It's kind of a fun little technique to get you more mileage out of your stencils. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Yarn Love, and I am going to use repetition today. I'm just going to be embossing this ball of yarn repeatedly on several different squares of solid color cardstock. So I use the Simon Says Stamp little embossing powder tool, and I use Simon Says Stamp clear embossing ink, and then Simon Says Stamp white embossing powder. If I forget to mention something, all the supplies will be linked in the description box below if you're watching this on YouTube, just in case I forget to mention a supply. Sometimes some things slip the mind, but okay, let's talk about cardstock. I believe I am using some Concord 9th. You know, they just came out with their new colors, and I've had them sitting on my dining table here, and I thought, ooh, these would be pretty colors to emboss the balls of yarn. But you could also use Simon Says Stamp has beautiful solid color cardstock. Whatever cardstock you have, you can emboss it in white, or you could also stamp it with the same shade, kind of a tone on tone. I thought about doing that as well. But since I had all my embossing stuff out and ready to go, I love this new powder tool. And it's really, really fun and easy to use. And that Simon Says Stamp embossing ink works really well as well. And then I just pour my white powder on a piece of scrap paper. That way you have a lot of room to just kind of dig it in there. Now, once I have I believe I have 6 little squares ready to go. I've got my heat gun piping hot, and I am using these adorable little hot hands. These cute little things work great for when you're embossing or when you pick up a hot foil plate if you're foiling, but they come in a lot of fun colors. I just have this kind of Simon Says Stamp color here, kind of an aqua, and it's a handy little tool. I know Kathy Zilski uses a clothespin to hold hers, but look at these cute little hot hands. A lot of times I use my tweezers. I mean, you can use a lot of different things, but I mean, how cute are these? And when you see all the different colors, you might be tempted to buy a couple colors. Okay, so I went ahead and embossed all 6 of these. And then what I'm going to do is use the coordinating die from the Yarn Love die set and die cut all of these balls of yarn. So this is repetition at its finest. Something I love to do a lot when you have, you're kind of stumped on a composition. Take one image. This is something I like to do. I like to take one image and use it repeatedly, preferably with a lot of different colors, because I like to pack in as much color as I can. The more color, the happier I am. The more of the spectrum I can fit in, the better I feel about it. Okay, so I'm using that coordinating die, some of that Easy C tape to hold it down. I take it off camera, run it through my die cutting machine, and then now I'm going to just use a little tape runner on the back of that dry embossed panel that I used with the Chunky Knit kind of sweater pattern, and I'm adhering this onto a cream card base You got a beautiful neutral on neutral. I did trim it down a little bit so you get that bit of margin. And then I'm going to use little foam squares. These are the SHIMS stamp foam squares that I have fallen deeply in love with. You got the smaller ones. These are the bigger ones. And these are also the thicker ones. They come in two different thicknesses, so you can get whichever dimension you prefer. Ooh, that was a new jingle. Okay, deciding where you want the colors to go. Deciding where you want that little trail of yarn. It looks like a yarn tail. And I wasn't quite sure how to do that, but I just put them all the same way, kind of to the right. Now, I'm not measuring or anything. I'm doing the old redneck eyeball it technique to get these lined up. You just do it until it feels right. And I kind of almost wanted to trim off that little yarn tail, but I left it on. And then I'm going to go ahead and use that same Yarn Love stamp set for a sentiment. Now, there are a lot of fun sentiments to choose from. I really like the mixture of fonts going on here, but there's one in particular I really like. Some days you're the cat, and some days you're the yarn. And that one made me chuckle because I feel like life is very much like that. You ever seen a cat with a ball of yarn? It just kind of kicks it around. And some days you're the cat kicking life. You're just kicking life. And then other days life's kicking you. And believe you me, I've had a few of those days where life is just kicking you right in the tushy. But it kind of makes you laugh when you give somebody a card and have a little humor about it. So I'm going to emboss the sentiment in white onto a strip of black cardstock. And then I chose a few of these, I think they're knitting needles. Like, I'm not an expert on it. I haven't ever tried knitting, but I have tried crocheting, if that's how you say it. And I really did enjoy it. I had a bunch of green yarn, and I was going to crochet myself one of those, what do you call it? The like infinity scarf. And I was halfway there, and I don't even remember what happened, but I never finished it. Now, my grandma used to be big into crocheting, and every Christmas we'd all get blankets. It must have took her forever, and they were big and colorful, and I've always wanted to make a rainbow crocheted blanket, like for a baby. How cute would that be to make a rainbow blanket? Maybe one of these days, but I've never tried knitting. I do like how knitting is a little, maybe more dainty, a little finer. I could be wrong with what I'm saying. But anywho, I use the coordinating dies. I love that there's coordinating dies for the sentiments. Pop that right in the middle. And then for the little needles, or whatever you call them, right underneath it. Just kind of flank it. Just to reinforce that these are, in fact, balls of yarn, if you were confused. Okay, then a few sparkling clear sequins here and there for a little glimmer. And you've got that fun little chunky knit sweater texture going on in the background. You've got the colorful embossed balls of yarn in rainbow order. And then you've got the witty sentiment. Some days you're the cat and some days you're the yarn. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.